Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta, May the 27th, Thursday morning. And I'm just happy to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And I have my chat room open if anybody's up and wants to go sit in there. I'm just drinking coffee, trying to wake up here this morning, and sitting back looking at all the stuff on Facebook and whatnot. And I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that I have a special guest coming on my show Saturday at I believe it's 12 noon Mountain Standard Time. I'll have to check the time again. But it's J.L. Godfrey. Now that you can't forget. J.L. Godfrey, he is awesome. He has a great website, JLG Enterprises. You can find his website at http // www.jl Godfrey, that's GODFREY.com. And he has a book. He's written a book, and it's called Living an Uncommon Life. And for a $5 donation on his website, which goes to get him on national radio, gets you a copy of his ebook, Living an Uncommon Life. And J.L. Godfrey, if you haven't listened to him, you can tune into his blog talk shows. He has a blog talk radio program, and it's www.blogtalkradio.com / Make It Happen Radio. And I'm telling you, you want to listen to this guy. I tuned in a couple of weeks ago, maybe about 3 weeks ago now, to a blog talk radio program. I believe it was I can't remember. It might have been Mrs. Success, but I'm not sure. But anyway, I can't remember now. It's been so long, and I've been so busy and so tired. But this show was so awesome to listen to. J.L. Godfrey, if you have never heard him speak, he talks about how, to make it happen, right? He says, on his website that, we can make it happen. We just have to make it happen. You know what I mean? He's a very much a positive thinker, believes that anything is possible, and not to put it off. You know what I mean? So if you have something in your heart that you really want to do, and you know that that it's for you to do, and you're thinking, oh, but how would I do it, or how could I make this happen, or it's just going to be too much work, and I'll procrastinate and put it off, and maybe I'll wait for a couple of years, sort of thing. And he's very good at he's very much a motivational speaker, and he puts it out there very plainly for people that you can make it happen. And you just have to do it. You just have to make it happen. So I like his style. I like what he has to say, and I hope you will tune in. It's going to be an hour-long program, and we're going to be talking about his ebook and also what he's doing and trying to working on getting on national radio down in the United States. And you can tune into his blog talk shows and check his website out and just see what he's all about. He's very awesome, and I'm just happy to have him on the show. So he'll be on Saturday, May the 29th. On my show, and you can check for show times and whatnot. I think it's 12 noon Mountain Standard Time. I'm not sure. So I just wanted to make sure I told everybody that, because I don't want people to miss that show. If you're available and you're going to be around, it's going to be worth listening to. This guy is he's worth listening to, and that's why I do believe that he'd be awesome on national radio, because he has a message for everybody, and that is to keep going and make it happen. And I just love that. I love people who are talking about making things happen and getting things, reaching out for our dreams, and reaching out for things that we thought were, maybe just like I just said, like a dream that would never happen, sort of thing. And really, sometimes it takes somebody like that. You need to hear some positive words from people who started out in the same position or worse than some of us, and then they make it happen. And it's very true. These people are very much mentors for us, and people, I love to listen to people that are talking about positive stuff, because, this life can be very, very much not a positive place. The world can be very much a negative place. And so anyone who's talking about positive, positive living is really doing something good, I think, and especially because he's sharing it with everybody, you know what I mean, and he wants everybody to know they can have a good life and living an uncommon life. I think that's just awesome. So yeah, so we'll get right on with the show here. You know, I'm not a professional or anything like that. I don't hold any professional counseling certificates, therapy certificates. You know, I'm just a person who pays to do my blog talk show because I feel that child abuse issues are not talked about enough. Adult survivors of child abuse, you know, the issues surrounding all of the things that we have to deal with. As a survivor, I know there's not very many people talking about it. It doesn't seem to be very comfortable for most people to talk about. And really, if we're ever going to stop child abuse and help people, we're going to have to start talking about it. And you know, I just realized that because I was abused doesn't mean that I'm lesser of a person or that I should just shut up and go hide somewhere. You know, the whole issue is that because abuse is so uncomfortable for everyone, and it really is, no one wants to talk about it. But because of that, then what that causes is most survivors of child abuse live in silence and are suffering, right? And so I just wanted to be one more voice, really, just to say that, you know, we need to just find what works for us, get the help that we need, keep reaching out, you know, keep walking forward in our healing journey at our own pace, what's comfortable for us. And so, you know, I'm not a professional, and I just wanted to be one more voice of encouragement, really, for people to hang in there and to fight for a good life. You know what I mean? If you were abused as a child, obviously it didn't start out very good. And so that's why I just feel like I just wanted to be one more voice just to say, hey, we deserve to have a good life just like everybody else, but it's really not going to just fall in our lap. I mean, it might for some people, but it sure hasn't happened for me. And so we have to work for it. We have to learn how to change the behaviors that we've learned, you know, over the years because of the abuse and whatnot, so we don't get re-victimized. And we need to learn how to, so that we don't victimize ourselves, you know what I mean, like self-sabotage and whatnot. We also need to learn to love ourselves and love other people, trust ourselves and trust other people. Trust is a huge issue with people if you've been abused as a child, and or even, you know, in domestic violence situations and whatnot, right? So it's just so important, you know, that we get help, and there is good help out there, and I know there is. I've talked to lots of counselors. I've never attended counseling sessions. I would love to do that. I don't have the money and really right now to do that. But at some point I probably will, and it's not a bad thing, you know, to have someone to talk to who might be able to point out some areas in your life that, you know, that you think you might need a bit of help with, right? These people are out there to do that, and so I think that's awesome. And also, you know, group support, online group support, you can remain anonymous that way. You don't have to give your name, and it's so good to be able to reach out and get some help. So that's why I'm doing this show, you know, just to be a voice of encouragement for people. And I know what it's like to suffer, you know, in an abusive home, and I thought, why am I just sitting here not doing anything and not saying anything, you know, when I know what it's like, and I know that 1 out of 3 girls and 1 out of 6 boys will have been abused. Pretty much that's standard stats across the board. 1 out of 3 girls and 1 out of 6 boys, or 1 out of 4 girls, 1 out of 7 boys, just depending on what stats you're looking at, will have been abused as a child, and that's too many. And that means, you know, you look around and you think about how many survivors are actually out there, but nobody's saying anything. And I know a lot of times people just go home and they suffer in silence, and they live day to day just fine, you know, they go to work or whatever, and they go to people's houses for birthday parties, and they go to movies, you know what I mean? They just live these lives that most people would think, if they didn't know what kind of a childhood they had, they wouldn't know that they were abused even. Quite often that's the case. You know, unless the abuse was just so psychologically damaging that, you know, people who have a hard time coping, and then it's quite obvious if they're just doing drugs on the street and you know, hurting themselves and hurting other people, you know, are really extremely wounded people. It might be a little bit more obvious that way, but most people don't realize that people have been abused unless somebody tells somebody they have been abused as a child, right? So we don't always know, you know, people didn't know in my life up here, especially in Canada, that I grew up in an abusive environment, in an abusive home, and suffered all kinds of abuse, right? So people wouldn't know that unless I told them. I do quite well during the day at work. I don't have any problems working out with the public. I've got a huge control on my anger, whereas when I was younger, I didn't. I used to have a lot of anger management problems and get, you know, even into my 30s, I had some problems with that. And wouldn't beat people up, but I would be in their face, screaming at them, and have a tendency to scare people because they'd be thinking I was going to become violent, right? So, I've got a good control on that now, and I realize that doesn't get anybody anywhere, and I've had to learn how to modify my own behaviors because of what I learned at home and how I was treated, see. So that's the whole issue, right? There's so many problems surrounding adult survivor issues, and I just wanted to be one more voice, so I'm glad that you can tune in. And if you're a young person under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission to listen to the show because, internet safety is such a huge issue. You want to keep yourself safe, right? There's millions of child sexual predators online at any time, and they will do anything they can to get a hold of you. So I don't know where the Blog Talk players are now. They could be on any websites, right? So you need to make sure that you have an adult say, listen to this program, and one of the archives if you need to, and then see if it's something that you should be listening to, right? It's so important because you need to keep yourself safe. You need to know how to do that. There's good websites out there regarding internet safety for children and for young people and for youth and whatnot. And keep yourself safe and tell your friends because you want to keep yourself alive and you do not want to be attacked and assaulted by a child sexual predator. So make sure that you keep yourself safe, right? So important. So we'll get right on with the show. I wanted to we were looking at yesterday morning cutting and self-injury from a website called helpguide.org. http www.helpguide.org. And, they were talking about, cutting and self-injury is the name of the actual article. Self-harm, help, support, and treatment. And they were looking at who engages in self-injury, types of self-injury. That's what we left off yesterday. Reasons for self-injury is the next part of this article, and I want to get right into it. And there's lots of reasons why people self-injure, and it doesn't necessarily relate to child abuse. I'm just bringing this up because I know that sometimes people who have been abused in situations, whether it's domestic violence or child abuse or whatnot, sexual assaults and whatnot, that quite often people who have experienced that sort of thing, will use cutting and self-injury as a means of coping. And but it's not necessarily related to child abuse, right, or anything like that. So, some people who have grown up in perfectly lovely homes, wonderful parents, still engage in self-injury and cutting. And there's reasons for it. There's all kinds of different underlying reasons for it. So I want to read this part. It says, reasons for self-injury, why do they do it? And I'm just reading right from the page here. You can pull up that website if you want to and take a look at it. It says, even though it is possible that a self-inflicted injury may result in death, self-injury is usually not suicidal behavior. The person who self-injures may not recognize the connection, but this act usually occurs after an overwhelming or distressing experience and is a result of not having learned how to identify or express difficult feelings in a healthy way. Sometimes the person who deliberately harms themselves thinks that if they feel the pain on the outside instead of feeling it on the inside, the injuries will be seen, which then perhaps gives them a fighting chance to heal. They may also believe that the wounds, which are now physical evidence, proves their emotional pain is real. That's what happened to me. That's why I wanted to self-injure as well, because that's exactly why. I wanted people to see the pain that was in my heart and show people, in an outward manner, just what was going on in my heart, which was pure destruction and pure, just depression and sadness, you know what I mean, and anger. It was just all this stuff, rolled into one huge, extremely painful ball of emotions that were in my heart. And so I wanted to self-injure and was thinking about ending my life. And this was just, 3 years ago. And I'm so happy that I've made the decision. It was a very conscious decision that I would not ever hurt myself ever again, you know what I mean, and knowingly hurt myself. I thought, no, I've lived enough abuse. I've had enough. No one's going to care if I hurt myself. So what is the point? There's many reasons why I started going through and looking at the problem and saying, why am I doing this, right? So that's the whole thing. I know what it's like to be there at the point where, a person is going to do something like that, to self-injure and to self-harm. I've done a little bit of it, but never any cutting. But I was actually going to start cutting and gouging myself, right? And I wanted to just show people the pain that was in my heart, right? And I thought, who's going to care? Not anybody, right? And I'm going to have scars, more scars than I already have, and at my own hands. And that really bothered me. I sat back and I thought, why am I doing that? I did not like what my parents did to me. They scarred my body and they scarred my heart, And I thought, why am I going to do that when I've already been through enough, and then I'm going to turn around and attack myself? I really got upset. I was just like, oh my God. So I had to sit back and think about why I was doing it, what I was doing, and I made the decision to never ever do that again, or never even to attempt it. And so far I've been very successful. And so, but it was a very conscious decision. I sat there and actually made the decision and said, no, I will never, ever do that again. I'd really need to rather be proactive and help people than sit around and hurt myself more. That's just ridiculous. So, but I know that so many people do hurt themselves, and they don't think of it as hurting themselves. They're just trying to feel something, or they're trying to show the pain. And it's really sad. It's so sad. There's better ways to cope. It says, they may also believe that the wounds, which are now physical evidence, proves their emotional pain is real. Although the physical pain they experience may be the catalyst that releases the emotional pain. The relief they feel is temporary. So that's the thing. See, it's only a temporary feeling of relief once they do it. So then they have to keep doing it to get that relief, and so it's really not a good coping mechanism, right? It says these coping mechanisms in essence are faulty because the pain eventually returns without any permanent healing taking place. So it says self-harm serves a function for the person who does it. If you can figure out what function the self-injury is serving you, then you can learn other ways to get those needs met, which will reduce your desire to hurt yourself. It is difficult to understand the motivations behind self-injurious behavior, but a clearer picture develops when you hear the uncommon explanations self-injurers give for doing it. And these are just some of the explanations that people have given Help Guide just to show why they do it, right? They said here, it expresses emotional pain or feelings that I'm unable to put into words. It puts a punctuation mark on what I'm feeling on the inside. That's what one person said. And another person said, it's a way to have control over my body because I can't control anything else in my life. And then another person said, I usually feel that I have a black hole in the pit of my stomach. At least if I feel pain, it's better than feeling nothing. And I've heard that from other people, that the reason they do cut or self-injure is because they can't feel anything, period. And so when they do self-injure, it allows them to feel something. And that's horrible, and I feel so bad for people that are in that position. And I know how hard it is, and my heart just goes out to people who are experiencing this, to be in that much pain that you just stop feeling. That's where I was at for a long time too, in my 30s, and I kind of had to shut down emotionally and just ignore what was going on inside of my heart. And then of course that was not a good idea, because then when I hit 40, 41, it all started to surface, and the anger and the pain started to surface, and that's when I really thought that I might start self-injuring again, and wanted to end my life. So that's the whole issue. I didn't try it or attempt suicide. I was just having suicidal thoughts. And, my brother committed suicide at the age of 33, and he had tried many times before. And I thought, and I swore I would never do that. You know what I mean? I was like, no way, I will not do that, because of the pain it caused, that it causes people in the pain that it caused me when he killed himself. You know what I mean? I thought, no, I don't want to do that, right? But then I was always in the back of my mind, because our parents had always been, both my parents, not just my mom, but my dad was always saying that, he should have killed the whole family, or he should have killed one of us or all of us, or that was the talk in the house, right? My mom was very often saying stuff like that, like I should have killed myself, I should have killed you, you should have died, this sort of thing, right? So we grew up with a lot of talk about death and killing, and so that's the whole issue when you hear that all the time from people who are manic depressive and borderline schizophrenic as your parents. It does sort of cause you to have these feelings, right, and very psychologically damaging, right? And so that's the whole issue, right? I don't think I would have gone through it, but that it's so bad to be to the point where you're thinking that the only relief you're going to be able to experience is if you self-injure or end your life. I mean, that is so bad for a person to get to that point. And my brother actually made it to that point, and now he's gone. Another brother of mine he basically committed suicide, but in a different way. He was just a huge drug user from the time he was a young kid, and he did so many drugs, that I knew eventually that they would take him, because he would overdose quite often and end up in the hospital and whatnot. And he died in a shelter up here at the age of 44 of a drug overdose. So I was not surprised, when it happened. basically a way to kill himself that was very, just a little bit different way of doing it, right? So horrible. So absolutely horrible, you know what I mean? And this is my own family. So, I thought, I don't want to go that way, man. You know what I mean? I want to have a good life. I started to fight to live instead of fight to die. And my parents had put that on us from the time we were born, that we did not deserve to be here. We were worthless, useless, and no good. And, we were always fighting to die in this family. It's just horrible. And I'm fighting to live now, and I'm fighting to help other people to do the same exact thing, and I hope that you will make that decision if you're listening to this, to stay alive and to fight to have a good life, and that we can have a good life. We have to work for it, just like everybody else, and it's not going to be easy, especially because if you've been abused as a child, we have all this stuff to overcome. But just people in regular everyday life have to overcome things, illnesses, tragedy in the family, people, horrible accidents and whatnot that happen to people, people losing their lives to accidents and car accidents and whatnot, and diseases, and this is the whole thing. Life's not easy for anyone, but it's especially not easy for those who have been already brought into the world in a horrific manner, being abused as children, not loved, and not shown how to cope or how to get along in this world. Like our parents did not know how to get along in this world, so they didn't teach us anything. So then we had to figure it out ourselves, and after being abused like that, then trying to figure out how to live is very, very hard. We all should have got some help, right? But some of us are doing quite well. And I know now I am doing extremely well, just because I know that my future lies ahead of me, and that I can make the steps necessary to get the information, to learn how to do things, to learn how to live, and to learn how to handle and cope with things properly. And that's the whole issue, right? We don't have to hurt ourselves, and we don't have to kill ourselves, and we can have a good life, right? We just have to keep looking for that information. It's out there, man. Thank God for the World Wide Web. There's all kinds of great information out there. And, we just need to find it and then find people who can help us get where we need to go. There's all kinds of people out there with their hands reached out saying, hey, come on, man, you're coming along with us because we're going to make it to the finish line. And that's what I keep saying. Basically, I've got my hands out saying, you're going to come along with me because we're going to make it to the finish line, and we're going to be winners because we're going to keep going. And we're going to keep looking for what's good in life. You know what I mean? And as much as we know what it's like to suffer and have been, through the most horrible, horrific things in our lifetime, doesn't have to be the be-all and end-all of our life. And that's what I kept thinking, do I have to really have a life of destruction my whole life, a life of death my whole life? Can I not have a good life? Is there some sort of sign painted on my forehead that says, oh, Laurie Smith, yes, abused as a child and must continue to have a horrible life as an adult? I started to look at that, and I thought, why does that have anything to do with my adult life? Why should that be the be-all and end-all, at the finish line when I'm done with this life? I thought that's just stupid, and I guess what it is when you're so used to being living in that type of environment, that's all you know. But some days, once in a while you wake up and you smell the coffee and you realize, hey, that does not dictate what my future is. The abuse that I suffered as a child does not dictate my life. It doesn't dictate it now. It did then, because I couldn't control what was happening to me. I mean, I couldn't make my mom love me, and I could not make her stop hurting me. I could not make my dad stop hurting the family and me and everybody else, and I could not make my siblings, conform and try to have a good life. All that was out of my control. So that's the whole issue, right? But what's in my control now is the way that I feel about myself, and the way that I handle myself every day, and the way that I choose to live my life with love and kindness and mercy and compassion and truth, really, and justice, right? And everything that is right about life, living and having fun. I still enjoy living and laughing and having a good time, and I've always been able to do that. People that know me, who might listen to my shows, would know that I like to have a good time, and I've always enjoyed sitting around with people, drinking coffee, laughing, and having fun. And I've never been one of those people that's just been always a downer and all sad and all serious all the time. But when it comes to talking about child abuse, it's a serious issue, so I sound pretty serious on the shows. But I love to laugh and have a good time, and I've always been like that. And because I like the good things in life, you know what I mean? And some of my siblings would point out that, there are good things in life. And my mom would, she would try. She was just so down most of the time. But when we would go out to friends' homes for dinners or whatever, everybody would put on their best face, and we would go out and we would have a good time and have a nice time as a family. Then we'd go home and all the crap would start again. So that's the whole issue. We do know how to have a good time and enjoy life, but now I'm doing it on my own terms with all that hatred and negativity and anger and just complete horror that was in my heart from living in that life that was put on me is gone now. And so that's why I just tell people, just keep reaching out, right? Because you just need to realize that we can have a good life. So I'll just keep reading here. I want to read this here. It says, self-injury can regulate strong emotions. It can put a person who is at a high level of psychological arousal back to a baseline state. Deliberate self-harm can distract from emotional pain and stop feelings of numbness. Self-inflicted violence is a way of to express things that cannot be put into words, such as displaying anger, shocking others, or seeking support and help. And it says here, self-injurious behavior can exert a sense of control over your body if you feel powerless in other areas of your life. Sometimes magical thinking is involved, and you may imagine that hurting yourself will prevent something worse from happening. Also, when you hurt yourself, it influences the behaviors of others and can manipulate people into feeling guilty, make them care, or make them go away. So there's reasons why people do it, right? Self-punishment and self-hate may be involved. Some people who self-injure have a childhood history of physical, sexual, or emotional abuse. They may erroneously blame themselves for having been abused, and they may feel that they deserved it and now are punishing themselves because of self-hatred and low self-esteem. And self-abuse can also be self-soothing behavior for someone who does not have other means to calm intense emotions. Self-injury followed by tending to one's own wounds is a way to express self-care and be self-nurturing for someone who never learned how to do that in a more direct way. And they said here, people who self-injure have some common traits. Expressions of anger were discouraged while growing up. They have coexisting problems with obsessive-compulsive disorder, substance abuse, or eating disorders, and they lack the necessary skills to express strong emotions in a healthy way, and oftentimes there is a limited social support network. So that's quite interesting that, there's many reasons why people self-injure. And, it's just horrible. People use it as a way to manipulate. I think my mom would never have killed herself, but she used to like to say it. And, I'll just kill myself or whatever. And she would have surgery. And then, she was very physically ill, the whole time I was growing up. And she would have surgery and then 2 days later be down on her hands and knees scrubbing the floor and then making everybody feel bad because her stitches had broken open. See, she would do that to herself, trying to make everybody feel guilty, right? Because we were so bad and we were bad kids and we were horrible people. We were a bad family, and she would try to rub that in our face as she's bleeding on the floor, but she would do it to herself, you know what I mean? And the doctors told her she had to stay in bed, she had to get rest, and she wouldn't do it. And so then she'd end up back in the hospital, you know what I mean? And the whole thing was just really stupid behavior. Really, but the whole thing is she was reaching out. She was at the time I didn't realize this, but now I do because of what I study and child abuse issues. She was abused as a child, and I think she was just reaching out for help. That was just her way of trying to get help, and really she needed the help, that we couldn't offer her, which was real, therapy, like counseling. And her children couldn't do that for her, and here she was abusing us, and so how could we even help her? We weren't even allowed in the same room with her, half the time, and if we were, it was a little bit dangerous, right? Dangerous place to be. So the whole issue is people do things for many, many reasons, and most of it has to do with the fact that they're hurting. So that's why if you're hurting and you just feel like you just can't figure out what's wrong and you can't move on, just make sure you get some help. Just reach out and keep that hope alive and get the help that you need that works for you. Try everything. That's what I like websites that say just try everything. Try therapy, try group support, try online therapy. Find some good people to hang around with in your life who care about you. It is so important, absolutely. We are in charge of our healing. We have to be. So, make those steps necessary to get some help, no matter what it is. Online group support, which is what I do because I really like that safety in numbers, and just meeting people and talking to people. So awesome. Well, we got about a minute left here, and, thanks so much for tuning in. Everybody, I've got bad allergies, so my voice is not too great. My nose is plugged. I appreciate you tuning in. Thanks so much, and I hope you have a great day. I'll be back on tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock a.m. Same time, same show, One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. And until then, take real good care of yourselves and keep reaching out, Get a hold of me if you need anything. I'm on Blog Talk Radio if there's something I can do. I'm also on Facebook and whatnot. You're more than welcome to contact me if you need anything, or if you want to be on the show, please let me know. I do have some guests coming up, and like I said, J.L. Godfrey, Saturday the 29th. Check my show schedule out. So have a great day, everybody. You're in my heart, you're in my prayers, and I'm keeping you very close to my heart, and I just want the best for you, and I just hope that you will continue to move forward with me on this walk and this journey, and stay with us. You know what I mean? So important, because we're going to make it to the finish line, and we're going to win, because I know it, because I've already won. That's the whole issue. We've already won just because we're still here, and that's the fight, that I fight to live every day, and not take myself out. You know what I mean? That's the whole issue. So I decided I'm getting to the finish line, and I'm going to have a good life, and I hope everybody will join me. So take care, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.